Hi, I will be answering question 3. Why are educational psychologists and school psychologists more likely to follow an ecological model rather than a medical model? And I will be referring to my notes. Okay, so before I begin talking about the model specifically, I'll share statistics that were highlighted in Gutkin 2012 that show the current state of mental illness and academic achievement in the schools. And I just got braces on, so I'm still talking funny, so I apologize. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, more than 1/4 of the American population has a diagnosable mental disorder. 85% of Americans will not receive healthcare treatment for that diagnosable mental or substance abuse disorder within a year. And 70% of those people will not receive any specialized treatment at all. 1/5 of children and adolescents experience signs and symptoms, according to the DSM-4, which was the old version, during a course of a year, and 70% of those children will also not receive mental health treatment, which is a really large amount. 30% of Americans, or American children in 4th and 8th grade, are reading at grade level. So when you say it the opposite way, 70% of children are not, of 4th and 8th graders are not reading at grade level, that number just sounds way too large. 25% of American 12th graders are doing math on grade level, and then again, reversed. 75% of 12th graders are not doing math at grade level. The next one blew me away. A public school student is suspended every second. Every second. That's crazy. And high school students drop out every 11 seconds. So those numbers, they're mind-boggling. And some of you guys know me personally and know that I was an elementary school teacher before coming to tech and pursuing the school psychology degree. So my colleagues and I had many playground conversations about students that we thought were experiencing some kind of mental disorder, or that we were for sure needed tier 3 SPED services. And yes, I know now what the research says about teachers getting together in clusters during recess and chatting. You know, they should be spread out or whatnot, but don't judge me. I also remember thinking back then that if our school had some kind of social skills program that started at the pre-K or kindergarten level for all students, that a lot of those social emotional issues and even academic issues, if we had some kind of intensive something like that for academics, some of those issues could be avoided during 4th and 5th grade. I'll come back to that point in a minute. I'll also begin by giving a brief definition of each model and then elaborating on why one was chosen as more adequate for use in the schools. So according to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, the medical model has some strengths and weaknesses. The strengths lie in its reliance on science and objective facts. So when dealing with acute conditions like infectious diseases, this model has made great strides in helping people and guiding the medical community. However, when dealing with students with mental illness and academic deficits, this model has fallen short due to its foundation based in pathology, which creates a service delivery system. I'll now tell you some more of the weaknesses that were highlighted by the research. The medical model focuses on services for individuals rather on general populations. Remember the staggering numbers that I referred to initially? How can this medical model then make a dent on those huge numbers of mental illness or academic deficits if it's focusing on case by case or student by student? Seems impossible. Another weakness of the medical model is that it focuses on remediation rather than intervention and prevention. Early intervention and prevention. Remember my playground conversations with my colleagues? It appears that the school that I was at was using the medical model when dealing with students with social and emotional issues. They were waiting until the problem was severe enough that it was hindering instruction and learning. And then you were left with huge amounts of students in the higher grades that had that needed that, that tier 3 or that diagnosis or that special education support. So these service delivery systems, that's what they do. They do just that. They wait until the smoke has turned into a fire to bring the water or the treatment or the interventions. Another issue with the medical model is that it's created a shortage of service providers. So by making mental illness pathology-based, the treatment must be delivered by highly qualified service providers. Its complexity and reliance on diagnosis disqualifies teachers and parents as potential partners in solving the students' issues. I can speak to this personally because I've been part of the conversations where teachers are talking about those students with the severe behavioral or academic issues and saying, well, I need someone that's qualified, or I need a professional to help because it's beyond what my pedagogy has taught me or has enabled me to do in the classroom. So through my education here at Texas Tech, I've come to realize that, that's false. Teachers and parents are a key component in tackling students' academic and social emotional issues. Also, or furthermore, relying on the DSM and IDEIA's definitions of what constitutes a disorder for the purpose of even qualifying for services has been found to be questionable with its reliability and validity. So that leads to another problem. If the reliability and validity are questionable, then the treatments are as well. And even if there is a diagnosis, that diagnosis doesn't tell you the severity of that child's emotional disturbance or the severity of that child's reading disability. And it doesn't tell you exactly what to do treatment-wise. The biggest issue, however, with the medical model, in my opinion, is that it puts a label on students without taking into consideration the environmental variables or factors that can be contributing to the disorder. All the issues with the medical model that I've previously said have led to this shift in paradigm shift into where we're relying more on what we're calling the ecological model. So although in my personal experience, I do see that still large components of the medical model are being used in the schools. That's a problem that the new generation of school psychologists is going to have to tackle. I think a lot of that is so ingrained into what school psychologists are, the roles that we've been assigned, and so it is going to take, I think, everybody to kind of change that mentality. So as I mentioned previously, the medical model ignores a student's environment, and the ecological model does the opposite. According to Grafenbrenner's ecological model, success in the nested levels translates to academic and emotional success as well. This model is comprised of 4 systems that are interrelated, and they reflect different facets of a student's environment. Those systems are microsystems, mesosystems, exosystems, and macrosystems. And just because of time, I'm not going to elaborate further on what those entail. But they go from more direct influences, like parents, family, school, to the broader influences, which are policy and laws and changes that happen at the district and state level. Changes in one system or level influence changes in the other levels. So they can also influence. Those changes can be positive, they can influence, or they can hinder a student's academic achievement and their social well-being. The model is seen as beneficial for the following reasons. Its focus is broader. It can focus on populations, so it targets populations. Instead of looking at the individual student, it can look at the whole class or the whole school or even the whole district. For instance, the whole class can be targeted, the school community, and even issues that are in the home. And by tackling those, the other areas are also impacted, which reaches a larger number of students. Also, early intervention and prevention is the goal. The focus can be on teaching methods. It could be on the classroom ecology by analyzing that. things like parent training, problem solving, communication training for students, which can tackle problems before they even arise or become severe. A benefit of this model that I really love is that it empowers teachers and parents to become and to be service providers. This creates a school that's full of human capital that can be trained to help students struggling with social skills or academic issues. With this approach, the adult stakeholders reflect on their own behavior and what they can be doing or what they're doing that's possibly contributing to the problem, or how they can change the student's environment to reduce the problem. They look at the issue and then they create interventions that can target that specifically. This approach doesn't view deficits as innate to the child. So it's not something that a professional, a medical doctor is going to diagnose and then he has to treat it. It's something that takes into account an environment, the factors, the environmental factors that can come into play, which I think is a good thing. As I stated previously, the medical model has value, but I don't think it has a lot of value in the academic setting. The ecological model structure is what's needed to tackle the staggering numbers of students with academic problems and mental issues.